Can't take her upstairs.
Welcome everybody to the show. I'm your host Kevin Briggins alongside my boy Randal Chatman. What's good, chat?
What's going on, man?
Not much, man. Hey, man, it's good to have you on for the very first time. We're gonna break down some college football. Playoff rankings just came out tonight for the very first time this year. We're gonna give our thoughts. We're gonna talk about what surprised us, what didn't, what was kind of expected, and then a few other things. So let's start off, man. So what was something that kind of jumped out to you as you saw the rankings come out?
Well, honestly, man, just go ahead and jumping right into the top six. I was a little surprised to see LSU at 3. And then when I started thinking about it, it was okay. Well, you look at their schedule and their body of work and who they've beaten, then I can justify them being 3. I just didn't think that the committee would put a one-loss LSU ahead of an undefeated Notre Dame. And considering that Notre Dame, the Notre Dame brand is so big, across the country. I mean, they're in. If everything started today, they're in. But I just didn't see them being fourth, as opposed to being, having the top 3 undefeated teams, 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, I see that. One thing the committee has shown a pattern of doing is kind of breaking the trend of what we think they're going to do. I remember the very first time they came out with the ranking, it was 3 SEC teams in the top 4. They know it's not going to end that way, but they're willing to do it if that's who they believe the ranking should be at that time.
Right.
And they value LSU's schedule versus Notre Dame's schedule, even though LSU has the loss.
Right. Something else too was to see Florida at 11. I know they have 2 losses, and right now they're 2 quality losses because they're the 2 teams that's ranked ahead of them. With Georgia and Kentucky.
Yeah.
But still have a 2-loss team ahead of a 1-loss West Virginia. Was really the one that stood out to me. I mean, I understand UCF is undefeated and they're the group of 5.
We're gonna get the UCF.
UCF is the undefeated team, the favorite as far as the group of 5 to try to wreck this whole playoff, this whole thing. But I still was, like I said, I was shocked to see Florida at 11 ahead of West Virginia more than me being concerned about UCF.
Yeah. This thing about Florida, I know they have 2 losses. Like you said, they're quality losses. They're number 6, number 9. But on the flip side of that, they've got the win over LSU.
That's right. That's right.
It's just really one of those things where the committee, even though you have losses, the committee is valuing those losses because at least you played those tough teams. And so the committee is kind of showing that they're going to value somewhat strength of schedule and not just look at losses, wins and losses.
Right. Entire body of work.
Yeah, and that is the key thing. I have a lot of discussions with people about the rankings and everything, and that's the one phrase the committee always throws out to make sure everybody understands what they're doing. They're looking at the total body of work, and when you look at the total body of work, for people who want like conference championships to mean the most, well, your conference schedule is only one part of your schedule. There's an out of conference as well.
That's correct.
Looking at all of that and not just, Penn State won the Big Ten, so they should be in. It's like, no, they lost to Pitt outside the conference. That matters.
Right.
That still matters. The whole body of work matters, right? And so the committee has been consistent in making that their standard.
Well, and to kind of piggyback off of that, if you look at maybe like just looking at the consistency as well. I mean, I know a lot of fans of college football and of specific teams, have valued this whole that conference championship or winning the conference should mean more than a team that doesn't, and trying to justify that they're one of the 4 best. And if you look at the past trends, I mean, here a Penn State team who had 2 losses but won the conference, and Ohio State got in with one loss a couple of years ago. And then you look at last year, when Ohio State won the conference, they had two losses, but then Alabama gets in, with one loss. And realistically, I mean, they got it right because Alabama ended up winning the whole thing. So, it looks like they got it right, But but just valuing, okay, the four best team versus this whole, well, who are the four most deserving? I don't think four most deserving equals four best.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. There's really a balance in that because this is the thing. Okay, Ohio State, one thing about those two teams, Ohio State, the year they didn't get in last year, and then Penn State, the year they got left out. Both of those teams, not only did they have two losses, they each had a blowout loss.
That's true.
Penn State got destroyed by Michigan that year.
That's right.
Ohio State got destroyed by Iowa.
Right.
So it's not just that you can't lose two games. You better be competitive and not get blown out. And that's why Ohio State, even this year with one loss, is in danger because that one loss is a bad loss.
Yeah, Purdue, right.
Yeah, if you get blown out by Purdue and Iowa, the committee is just going to look at that a certain way and not just say, "Hey, you're the Big Ten champ." No. You gotta overcome that loss. It's not like Florida. Close loss, tough game against Georgia. Tough game against Kentucky. Those are just tough games. You're gonna lose some of those games, right?
Right.
They didn't get ran off the field. Like Ohio State did, like Michigan, like Penn State did a few years ago against Michigan. I think it was 49-10 was that score of that game.
Oh yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, it was.
Man, Penn State should be in. I'm like, they lost 49-10 to Michigan and lost to Pitt.
Right.
And so the committee has been consistent, and if you follow what the committee has put out year after year, you can pretty much project how their rankings are going to come out now.
Right.
Because you know how the committee thinks, you know how the process works, you know what they're looking at, you know what they value, So given that, which team, in your opinion, because every year this seems to happen, which team outside of the top 10, these initial rankings to you, do you think has the best chance to make a run? And I'll put the teams back up there just so you can see them.
Okay. Outside of the top 10.
Yeah, outside the top 10, who would you say has the best chance to make a run? Because it seems like every year in the playoffs, some team that's not in the picture in the initial rankings,
right,
makes their way up there.
I'm definitely going to go ahead and go with West Virginia because they have Texas and Oklahoma left on their schedule. Texas losing hurts that game a little bit now that they're 17 and not in the top 10. If they had, both of those teams in the top 10 left, then you definitely and they beat them, then you definitely have to make a strong case for West Virginia to get in. And then again with the one loss. Other than that, man, that's going to be tough to pick somebody else. I haven't looked at Penn State's schedule, so I'm not really sure on them. But to answer your question off the top, I'm going to go with West Virginia.
Yeah, West Virginia would be my answer as well. Like you said, they've got Texas and Oklahoma both in front of them. Now, whether they're likely to win both of those games, that's a different story, but it sets up perfect for them to make a run. If anybody outside that top 10 can, is West Virginia. One thing you mentioned too was Texas at 17. When the rankings came out, I wrote Texas at 17 ? That shocked me that they were that low.
Okay.
I know they just had the Oklahoma State loss, but with the win over Oklahoma, win over USC, a convincing win over USC. I don't know. I just thought Texas would be a little higher than 17.
Right.
They're behind Penn State. Penn State has 2 losses. Utah has 2 losses, but yet Texas is behind both of those teams. And so Iowa has 2 losses. So a lot of people, like last week, thought, if Texas beat Oklahoma State, they're in the top 5, top 6. But the committee is not valuing Texas as much as the AP in the coaches poll or even some of the talking heads out there. So that was one thing that stood out to me that was kind of surprising was Texas at 17.
Well, I'm looking at Oklahoma State's schedule right now, and I'm trying to justify how bad of a loss was, them losing to Oklahoma State. And I mean, they did lose to Iowa State. Oklahoma State did. Oh, and they lost to Texas Tech too.
Just the
So
thing, Oklahoma State is a puzzling team
they
because they
are
came in preseason ranked, some expectations to be one of the top teams in the Big 12. So the talent is there, but
right.
they've been up and down all year long. So you don't really know which Oklahoma State team you're going to get. Like that Texas Tech loss, okay, you lose to Texas Tech, but the way they lost to Texas Tech,
Right.
kind of showed that there are some problems there.
41-17. Yeah, that's an ugly loss. Kansas State too.
And at that time they were ranked. Oklahoma State was ranked.
Right.
And so Texas Tech went in there and just beat them really bad. And so it's not that Oklahoma State loss is a bad loss. It was in Stillwater. It's just the fact that Oklahoma State talented but up and down. It's a game you can very easily, any team in the Big 12 can easily lose at Stillwater.
That's true.
Yeah, it's not like this team that doesn't have any talent. They just aren't playing well,
Right. Not consistent at all.
Absolutely. So in Texas, it was one of those games where Texas was the better team, but they came out sleepwalking, and before they knew it, they were down big. And then they stormed back, and it's almost like, okay, they just ran out of time. So it wasn't like they went in there and got ran out the field or anything like that. I personally probably would have still had Texas ahead of, say, Utah and Penn State, even though I do like Utah.
Okay. Well, to go back to real quick to the top 6, my question for you is: which one of these teams do you think are likely not to make the playoff?
I was going to ask you the same thing. I think the answer is obvious and for obvious reasons. And I think that's LSU, and that's just because they have to play Alabama this week.
Okay.
And they have a loss. And so that's going to be loss number 2. And so 2-loss team that didn't win their division, that's pretty much kind of knocked them out of the race.
Right.
Yeah. And so out of the top 6, some people might say Alabama going to Death Valley is a much winnable game for LSU than Michigan having to go to Ohio State. So the answer could be Michigan very easily, just because of even though LSU has the tougher matchup, LSU has that game at home, whereas Michigan has to go to Ohio State.
Right.
And so both of those teams, if they lose, will be a 2-loss team. But I'm just going to go LSU simply because I just think the task that they're facing, of who they're facing, is greater than, because if Ohio State doesn't fix their problems, Michigan can go in there and win.
Yeah, they can. And Harbaugh's due, man. I mean, they brought him there to win these games, and he hasn't done it yet. I mean, he's beaten Michigan State here and there. Of course, he beat Penn State, but he has not beaten Ohio State yet.
Nope.
And this is the year to do it. There's some problems going on in Columbus, and with Urban Meyer and the program. I mean, they're not playing that well, and so he's got Michigan rolling, so to speak, right now. The defense is playing well. They're finding their offensive identity, and this is a year, man. If he can't do it this year, I don't know.
I do think, and it is amazing how we are so in the moment, because before the season, early in the year, it was, man, does Harbaugh need to win this year? And then they come out and they lose their opening game to Notre Dame, and people start talking like, man, Harbaugh is a bust. He's not getting it done. And then we just go. Michigan keeps winning. They keep improving. All of a sudden Notre Dame hasn't lost. Like, oh, that doesn't like a bad loss now.
Right.
And then Ohio State losing, all the focus goes to how bad Ohio State is struggling, and all of a sudden Michigan's the team that's in the top 6.
You're right.
The narrative just changes, right?
Right.
So, I like where Michigan is. I love their defense. Offensively, Michigan and LSU are very, very similar teams where defensively you like what you see, but the offense still leaves something to be desired. Right.
Right.
They're still a work in progress. They both still have quarterbacks who transferred in, still trying to figure things out. And they just don't look, even though Michigan has improved from where they were at Notre Dame game, they still don't look like they're still not as efficient as some Notre Dame offenses we've seen in the past, where the run game was clicking. They had a big tight end to throw to, you know.
Right.
But like we say, if Ohio State does not fix their problems, Michigan is going to go in there and win because Ohio State can't stop giving up big plays.
Right. Yeah, that has been an issue for them this year, man. And I mean, right now, I don't know who I'm going to take. You know, we still got a little while before that game, but yeah, I mean, for the sake of the rivalry, man, I'm pulling for Michigan. You know, and I mean, I got family up there, man, that love Michigan, so they would be a little upset with me if I went Ohio State. But I mean, that's a different topic right now. But I'm just saying, man, right now, I'm hoping Michigan can pull this thing out. Because to be honest with you, I would like to see Michigan play Alabama.
I would love to see it too. Now we've seen it in 2012, but I remember that 2000 Orange Bowl with Tom Brady lit us up.
Yeah, he did when we had Sean Alexander.
Yeah.
And they had a receiver out wide, man. David Terrell. Yes, that Michigan team was good, man.
That was a good Michigan team.
Yeah.
I was like, why is Tom Brady going the 6th round? He's great. People are like, man, Tom Brady didn't go to the 6th round. Like, man, people didn't watch the Orange Bowl. I knew he was going to be great.
Right.
But yeah, Vinny, man, Vinny's chatting us up. Vinny's a Michigan fan. He says he's agreed. He also made a good point. The committee is really punishing Texas for that Maryland loss. I haven't heard Maryland loss. That's a bad loss.
That is a bad loss earlier in the year.
Yeah, first game of the season, 2nd year in a row. It really makes no sense because Maryland's been pretty bad since that win.
Right. I mean, the same thing happened last year. They beat them and they didn't finish the year that well. Maryland.
Yeah, but last year Maryland had an excuse because they were healthy when they beat Texas. They lost their top 2 quarterbacks like back-to-back weeks. They were down to a 3rd-string quarterback. Okay. And so everybody's like, okay, they looked great when they had their starting quarterback. This is a product of them just being to a 3rd-string quarterback. Well, this year they beat Penn State, they beat Texas again. And you're like, okay. But then the rest of the season has just been a crash and burn. And of course, they had the off the field stuff. DJ Durkin being suspended, the kid that died in the offseason from the conditioning program, the investigation.
Right.
So there's a lot of stuff going on with that program right now. Vinny B said Maryland was on their 9th quarterback last year. I mean, it did. It got bad, man. I think they were looking at the stands, pulling guys out.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah. One thing I will say, let's kind of jump conferences a little bit. The Pac-12. Pac-12 is in trouble, man.
Yeah, if Washington State doesn't help them out, and doesn't if they don't run the table, then that's it. I mean, that's the only shot they got. And they already have one loss.
Yeah.
And so you're thinking, well, they got to win the Apple Cup, and beat Washington. So.
But how much? Washington has 3 losses. How much value?
I know. Well, you can't lose though.
No, they can't lose.
Yeah,
but you have to have a shot. But even in winning out, they need a lot of chaos in front of them to happen.
They do.
In the top 45.
They do. I was actually looking at this list, looking at 5 through 10, and I mean, I agree with you on Washington State, and not to jump away from that too quickly, but I was just thinking that there could be some chaos where Alabama and Georgia both get in again this year, possibly.
Yeah, it's going to take some chaos. I do think the committee would kind of somewhat forgive Georgia for losing at LSU because it's at LSU, right?
Right.
But yeah, it's going to take some chaos to get 2 SEC teams in.
I mean, Alabama have to win out, and Georgia will have to beat them in the SEC championship.
Okay. Yep. In that scenario, I definitely can see it because Alabama with the one loss in it, yeah, both of those teams get in.
Right.
I'll be honest, in that scenario, both of those teams get in. They're not leaving Alabama out, and they're not taking Alabama without taking Georgia.
Right. Right. So at that point, you got your SEC champion, you got an at large, so to speak, and then so it's like, okay, you wait to see what else happens. Does Notre Dame stay undefeated? And then at that point, do you put them in? So then you're only bringing in one more conference champ. That would be total chaos to the whole, just
And that is
ruin the whole thing.
Yeah, and that is the nightmare scenario for this, is that two get in from one conference and Notre Dame gets in.
Right.
Yeah. That
Clemson.
And I don't think Clemson loses. I don't think there's anybody on their schedule left that can challenge them.
No.
I mean, we've seen upsets. We've seen Clemson lay eggs, like the year they lost to Pitt for no reason. Syracuse last year. But I just don't see it this year. Notre Dame still has a tough test. They've got to go to Northwestern this week.
Oh, okay. That's right. That is this week.
Yep. And if they don't bring it, I mean, they can lose that game easily. Northwestern is one of those teams where the talent is not going to blow you away. Like you watch them play, but man, they play hard. They play disciplined. And Pat Fitzgerald is going to have those guys ready to come and hit and play.
Right. Yeah, that's going to be a tough test for Notre Dame. Who else do they have left? They play. I know they still have USC.
So they got USC at the end. Northwestern. I forgot who else. There's no other challenge on the schedule. Put it like that.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other observations that you've had? I got a few more written down.
Well, again, I'm looking at the possibility of. I don't think Kentucky has a chance to get in the playoff, but I'm just looking at if they beat Georgia and get to the SEC championship game. I mean, that's just it's just a sidebar. I mean, that's a successful year for them. They've never been.
Already a successful year for them.
To that game. I mean, barring an upset over Alabama, of course they would be in then. But yeah, I'm just looking at that. Like you said, Washington State is the only hope for the Pac-12, but even then, the schedule's not that strong. Ohio State and Michigan still have to play each other. Oklahoma is a dark horse right now, and I'm calling them a dark horse just because they're at 7.
Yeah.
But with the Big 12 title game against, still have West Virginia on the schedule. Plus, like I said, could be a rematch of that game in the title game.
Yeah.
Depending on what else happens ahead of them, they could sneak in too.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm just going to be blatantly honest. As an Alabama fan, Oklahoma is probably the team I least want to see.
Offense.
Only because they're the only team I think could play us in a shootout.
Okay.
Now, because their defense can't stop water. I mean, they're bad on defense. And Alabama would run up and down the field, but Oklahoma could do the same thing.
Yeah, they can score with anybody, man.
Yeah, theoretically, right?
Right.
So, because I think all the other teams, the Michigans, the Georgias, the LSUs, to me, those teams are somewhat limited offensively and rely on the defense side of the ball. And defense side of the ball and running game.
Right.
That's not going to be this year's Alabama team.
I agree.
Yeah, Oklahoma, a team that can light it up, that can go toe-to-toe offensively. That's the kind of team that you kind of worry about. Can go who if anybody could beat Alabama based on matchup, you would probably say Oklahoma.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, their offense is so explosive, man, and they have the recipe of the type of offense that has historically given Alabama, serious problems. And you know, with Kyler Murray back there, man, him being the athlete that he is, uh, yeah, that could be it'd be fun to watch for a fan of football who isn't a fan of either one of those teams. It'd be a great game to watch.
Yep.
But
Because think about what are the things you need to beat Alabama. You need a dual threat quarterback, a true dual threat, a guy who can really beat you with his arm or his legs.
Exactly.
Playmaker, he can extend the pocket. You need a guy. You need
running game.
You need tempo. You need tempo, dual threat quarterback, and guys who can make plays downfield. If you have those three things, you can upset Alabama.
You can. But like you said, with Oklahoma's defense,
yeah,
we still in that game the whole game, even if their offense is clicking.
No, the score might be 70-49. I mean, could ever stop Alabama's offense,
right?
But the point is, Oklahoma could put up some points.
They can.
Other teams, I don't think, has the offense to put up points with Alabama.
Right, and we saw that last year when Oklahoma played Georgia in the semifinals.
Absolutely, yeah, it could look very similar to that.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a scary potential matchup for Alabama, but it'd be fun for football. It'd be fun for football. It'd be a great matchup, man.
Yeah. Yeah, Vinny B just made a good point. If Alabama Oklahoma played like a 1 versus 4, it would be in Arlington, which is
that would be that
Oklahoma's backyard.
Right. Yeah, that's not good for Alabama.
No.
Yeah, I saw earlier on the show, that Chris Fowler was talking about, Alabama fans are emailing him talking about, well, where's their, first round game going to be? Is it going to be in Dallas or in Miami? I would prefer to be in Miami, as an Alabama fan. But yeah, if Dallas is the top spot, that's where they got to go.
Yeah. Yeah. Dallas is not a bad spot to go either.
Nah, it's not.
I went a few years ago. I went to the Alabama USC game out there.
Okay,
man, that was a good atmosphere.
Okay,
Jerry's
World, yeah.
All right, so, so I guess some other observations I had was just the number of SEC teams at the top. 3 out of the top 6 and 5 out of the top 11 are from the SEC.
That's pretty impressive for a down year, supposedly.
Yeah, and the most shocking thing is, I mean, some teams we expected. Let's be honest, nobody expected LSU to be here.
Not this high.
Before the season, we looked at opening with Miami, and then in week 3 playing at Auburn, and everybody said, "Oh, LSU's going to be 1 and 2."
Right, going through that, that initial 3-game stretch.
Yeah,
I see that. Yeah, everybody was saying that.
Yeah, and they came out with a chip on their shoulder. I'm getting to your question, Vinny. I'm about to get there. Because the other team that nobody saw coming here, let's be real, and that's Kentucky.
Oh, definitely. But I mean, they got a stud at running back, man. They have an athletic quarterback. He showed last week, albeit that it was only a 1-point win and a low-scoring 1-point win, but he did show that he has the ability to try to beat you with his arm. And if you take the running game away, they have other options. This week going against Georgia is going to be interesting. I really don't expect them to beat Georgia because I just think that their defense is too good. They're going to take away the run first, and I don't know if this kid can be accurate enough to beat that type of defense.
Yeah,
I mean, Missouri's defense isn't Georgia's defense.
Yeah, and Vinny asked, "Do I believe in Kentucky or Florida?" From a Final Four type of team, no. But the one thing that LSU, I'm not going to leave Georgia out of that. LSU, Kentucky, and Florida. The one thing that all 3 of those have in common is defense.
True.
They have some quarterbacks who are inefficient. The offenses are all works in progress. But defensively, all 3 of those teams are very sound and solid. And I leave Georgia out of that for a reason. Not that Georgia's not good defensively. I think defensively Georgia is still a work in progress.
I agree.
And I would not be surprised if that Georgia Kentucky game is close in the fourth quarter.
Okay.
It is at Kentucky.
Right.
One thing Georgia relies on is running the ball. They need Jake. They don't want Jake Fromm throwing the ball 30 times. They want to run the ball. The one thing Kentucky can do, man, is stop the run.
Right.
I don't know. Georgia's a much better team, a much more talented team. But I don't know if this matchup is the best matchup for Georgia.
Whew, man.
Can I see Kentucky in the SEC championship game? Absolutely not.
Yes, I can. You can't? No, really? I can, but
that's not supposed to happen.
I mean, I can this year.
I just can't visualize running out SEC championship game for football and Kentucky's in the game.
Big bluegrass.
Yeah, like not for basketball season. And so I really can't see them being in that position. But when I look at this matchup, if I'm a Georgia fan, I'm somewhat nervous that if they come out with that same mentality they had at LSU in that hostile environment that they had last year at Auburn in that hostile environment, it can be a close game in the fourth quarter where Georgia's gonna have to make some plays to win it against a very, very good defense.
I'm telling you, man, I can see it this year. I get where you're coming from. I mean, no one ever expects. I mean, year in and year out, when you start the season, it's two teams in the SEC. We could say three. There's definitely two teams in the SEC that you do not expect to make it to the championship game.
Yep.
Kentucky and Vanderbilt.
Absolutely.
And now here it is, Kentucky. This is the closest I can remember them ever being. With the opportunity to go. And that's why I say this year I could see it because they're there.
Yeah.
But I mean, I definitely agree with you when you say preseason. Okay, well, you got Kentucky this year. Well, I'm gonna be 13th or 14th. Right.
But yeah. So, all right. So let's transition a little bit. We've kind of talked about everything I kind of have on my list. I was somewhat surprised at the ACC having the Virginia, NC State, and Boston College in. I know it's in the bottom of the 25. You and I kind of talked off air about, okay, whenever somebody is complaining about a team being in the top 25, like A&M or Mississippi State with 3 losses, my response is always, okay, well, who should be in? And I usually give the answers. That's kind of how I feel about NC State, Virginia, and Boston College. I can complain about, I don't know if they should be in, but at the end of the day, who should be in there, right?
Well, it's just like we were saying earlier. Okay, so when I went back and looked at the AP, excuse me, the AP poll and compared it to the college football playoff rankings, there are 2 teams that are in the AP that are not in the playoff ranking, and vice versa. So there's Houston and Utah State that are ranked 17 and 18. I mean, we're not talking about 24 and 25. 17 and 18. But then in the college football playoff ranking, we have who was it? NC State, and let me find the other one real quick, and Iowa State.
Yeah, Iowa State, yeah.
Iowa State. Those 2 teams are not in the AP poll. And we have Iowa State at 24 and NC State at 21 in the playoff ranking. So, I mean, those 2 teams right there, you could make a case for swapping.
Yeah, and you know what I think that says to me? To me, that says that the college football playoff committee pays more attention to actual games than AP voters.
That's true.
Because it's easy to say, oh, Houston 7-1, let's rank them.
Well, but they did just beat a ranked South Florida team.
They did. And they destroyed Arizona. Even though Arizona's not a good team, they just upset Oregon.
Right.
But Arizona's like 4-4. They got destroyed by East Carolina and Houston. But I think the committee, like an Iowa State, they look at Iowa State and say, hey, you know what? On film, this is a good football team.
Right.
You know, um, and went back and look at their schedule. I mean, they've got some decent wins. You know, and I watched the Oklahoma game. Oklahoma did not run them off the field. To me, the only questionable loss they have is TCU, because what TCU is right now, at the time, it wasn't a bad loss. 17-14 to TCU is not a bad loss. But looking at TCU now, you know, but I think the committee has it right with Iowa State in the top 25, because I believe they pay way more attention to actual games than just looking at, oh, they're 6-3 and it's Iowa State. You know,
Right.
it's easy to throw 7-1 Houston in there because they're 7.
Right.
You know,
Right.
But yeah, Tram Dickerson, he said Bama set up to skip the SEC championship game and still get in. This year, I do not think that can happen. I've been hearing the talking heads talk about it. I don't see it, because just look at let's say everything works out. Let's say Clemson wins out. Let's say you have the SEC champion, whether it's LSU or Georgia, right? That's 2 slots right there. You got Notre Dame, and then you got a 1-loss Oklahoma Big 12 champ, a 1-loss Michigan or Ohio State Big 10 champ.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if Alabama is one of the top 4 teams, but in that scenario, I don't know if they get in. They got in last year because Ohio State had 2 losses as a conference champ.
Correct.
If that doesn't happen this year, I'm not sure if Alabama gets in.
That's going to be really tough, man. They would need something like I'm assuming he's saying like if they were to lose to LSU.
Yeah, that'll be the only way. Lose at LSU.
And what would have to happen is LSU would have to drop one to Texas A&M or something.
Yeah, for Bama to get in. Yeah,
right. You know, that gives them 2 losses in the conference. So at that point, the LSU loss doesn't mean anything. We're still in the conference championship.
Yeah.
And then therefore you have your chance to get back into the playoff. But if that doesn't happen, it's gonna be tough, man.
It's gonna be tough because strength of schedule, right?
Right.
I do believe last year the committee gave Alabama credit for playing Florida State with Francois before he got hurt.
Right. And dominated the game.
And then they judged Florida State differently after he was hurt going forward.
Right.
I don't believe you get that with Louisville this year. Louisville's a bad team.
Right.
Right. And so I just don't think Alabama can afford the loss this year with the out-of-conference schedule being so weak and the SEC schedule being what it is, with Arkansas being bad, Tennessee being bad, Missouri's not great. You know, Alabama has not had the toughest run of the SEC schedule this year.
That's true. And even when you look at the division, I mean, of course, they beat a still now ranked Texas A&M team. You know, you like you say, you have, hypothetically, we're saying they lose to LSU. Auburn's not ranked anymore. I mean, they still have Mississippi State, you know, on their schedule, which is still at home. You know, it's not like going on the road and having to beat a ranked Mississippi State team, which will hold a little bit more weight to prove that point that yes, they can still get in. So I'm in total agreement on this one, man. That's going to be tough if they lose this game without any other help going on, or if LSU loses again.
Put it like this: if Alabama gets in without going to the conference championship game, if they get in without beating LSU, the committee stance of 4 best teams is going to really be tested.
It is.
Because nobody's going to say Alabama's not one of the top 4 teams. But that the top 4 teams, or the 4 best teams balanced by deserving team that the committee has to balance out, it's going to seriously be tested if Alabama loses to LSU, doesn't play in the SEC championship game, and you don't have a 2-loss conference champion out of anywhere.
Well, and also too, I agree with you. And with 6 new members on the committee this year, you don't know what different variable they're going to bring. All 6 of those people may say, you know what, I'm more of a most deserving type voter. So, you know, I understand the 4 best, but this is who I'm voting for. And they can all be in agreement, and whoever is leading the group can say, well, we're trying to find the 4 best teams. But as an individual voter, I mean, it's my vote.
Yeah.
And if I feel like I want to vote for a team that is deserving because they won their conference championship and leaving out a one-loss Alabama that does not win their conference, then what can you do?
Yeah.
So
and that's why you don't want to lose their game if you're Alabama, because you don't want to be at the mercy of the committee at that point.
Right.
Right. And Vinny, man, I'm a Bama fan, but I try to be objective. It's the only way to be, man. And
definitely.
When I'm being a homer, I will admit that I'm being a homer. All right, because hey, that's the point about doing these shows, right? We're fans. That's why I got my Bama stuff up. I want people to know I'm a Bama fan, but still be objective.
Right. And that's what and like you said, that's what it's about, man. I don't like being or coming off as, one of those blind Bama fans, because I'm not. I mean, I love football, I love sports, period, and just I have my teams in other sports too, but I'm not biased when it comes to that stuff, and I try to prove my points, and I usually try to have stuff to back it, and even when it comes to teams that I may not like or not supposed to like rivals. I mean, it just is what it is, and it may sound biased, but it's not.
Yeah. All right. So with that being said, let's break down this matchup real quick. Next, number 1 versus number 3, Alabama going to LSU. What are your thoughts?
I think Alabama's going to win the game first. But covering the 14.5, that's going to be interesting to see. I could see it happening. I could see a 14-point win. I'm not going to go out on a limb and say I see a 20-point win or 21 or 24-point win. Not saying that they aren't capable of that. It depends on what LSU we get. They haven't shown much consistency as being able to score a lot of points this year. That's one thing Joy Galloway said the other week when they only scored 19 to beat I can't remember who it was, Mississippi State, right? And so it's like, well, I don't. He said I don't care, when they play. If they can't manufacture an offense, it's not gonna matter. Which is usually not necessarily the case with Alabama, year in and year out, because we've never had an offense like this.
Yeah.
So, but I'm definitely definitely rolling with the Tide, man. And I think this game is going to be heavy Damian Harris.
I can see that as well. I will say this. I do think Alabama covers the spread.
Okay.
Last year was 24-10. I know it was in Tuscaloosa, but it was a Jalen Hurts led offense. That's a 14-point win. So it doesn't have to be, a major score. I will say this. I don't think this LSU team is equipped to play this Alabama team. They're equipped to play the Alabama team of old, the Alabama team with Jalen Hurts, the Alabama team with Greg McElroy, where we're going to line up with 2 tight ends and we're going to try to play smash mouth and it's ball control offense. And at the end of the day, we're going to pull out a 21-13 victory. That's not this LSU team isn't built to beat this Alabama team, because number one, they can't. Not only can they not score enough, if they have 3 and outs, it's going to be bad, right? And so they're still a team relying on their run game, and the passing game complement the run game. Well, you're not going to run on Alabama, not consistently, not as a game plan.
Right.
And so even though this game is at LSU, I expect it to be a crazy atmosphere. I just don't think this LSU team can generate enough offense, not even just to score, but to keep Alabama's offense off the field enough to stay in the game. If Alabama goes up 14-0, that it can spiral down really quick for LSU if the next possession they go 3 and out. You know what I'm saying? Like, can they generate enough offense to keep Alabama off the field? And then there's a couple of things with LSU's defense that's working again. They have a great defense, but they lack an edge rusher, so they can't get pressure without blitzing. They can't just get pressure their front four. Florida ran for 200 yards on them. Mississippi State ran for over 200 yards on them. You know, Georgia had success running until they abandoned the run because LSU adjusted. LSU on the back end is the defense we think they are. Their secondary. Their front seven isn't the defense that most people think they are.
Right. And I think that's why I kind of felt like we could see some heavy dose of Damian Harris.
Absolutely gonna see Damian Harris.
Because I think from what I've seen, and you know what, they could come out and prove me wrong, but from what I've seen, they don't tackle that well. And that's not good if against us.
LSU's defense is ranked 21st in the nation in overall defense and 7th in scoring defense. So, I mean, that's pretty good. But just like you can look at the defenses Alabama has faced and kind of draw question marks around their offense, you can look at the offenses LSU's defense has faced. They haven't faced very good offenses to get those defensive numbers. Mississippi State is a name to say you beat Mississippi State. Florida is a name to say you beat Florida. Those aren't good offenses. Auburn, not a good offense, right? And so you can play that kind of smash mouth, drag it out type of game, and your offense can sputter because your defense is keeping you in it. I don't necessarily, because those offenses they were facing were bad. I don't think this matchup allows LSU to play that type of game. So unless LSU breaks character and comes out and is running tempo and just throwing the ball all around the field, which when that happens, then you'll get some INTs because you're playing out of character. Right. And so I don't see, outside of Alabama coming in, being intimidated by the atmosphere, turning the ball over 3 or 4 times, I don't see any way for LSU to win the game outside of that scenario.
Whew. Well, you over here preaching, man. I mean, I don't really know what else to say behind that one, man. It's just,
I mean, that's just how I try to analyze, football as objectively as I can, right?
Oh, definitely.
I just think it's a matchup. Like I say, that's why I think Oklahoma is the toughest matchup, and the counter to that is why I think LSU is not a good matchup, or it's not a tough matchup or the toughest matchup for Alabama this year. Vinny B say Michigan is going to choke slam Penn State. He said Georgia's going to grind Kentucky to dust.
Hey, I got Georgia in that game too, so
Yeah. I agree with both of his picks. I think Michigan beats Penn State. I'm not sold on Penn State.
Nah,
I'm not. But I'm telling you, something's missing with Georgia. I know they had the big win against Florida this week, but something is missing when I watch them play.
Well, I think it's definitely up front, man, on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
They lost so much from that team last year. And my preseason thoughts were, when I saw where Georgia was preseason ranked, I thought they were ranked too high then, to start the season, because I know that what they had coming back on offense with Fromm and then the receivers, and even though you lost 2 special backs, you had 2 really good backs to replace them.
Yeah.
But man, that defensive side of the ball, man, I'm not gonna say they look totally different, but they are not the same. And I think that's the difference up front.
It was based on the fact on recruiting, because Kirby has recruited well since he's gotten there, and the fact that it's Kirby.
That's true, but we also talking about one number 1 recruiting class.
True.
That was just this year.
True,
freshman out of there now.
Before that, it wasn't number 1, but it was top. I believe it was top 3.
Okay.
His first class, and so people were expecting the kind of Alabama turnover. Like when Nick came in, 07 was a struggle.
Mm-hmm.
08 they were good, and then
Mm-hmm.
09 was a national title. And there hasn't been any drop off defensively since 2008. They just kind of reload. So people,
Right.
Kirby is coming with that same mentality. He's brought this talent in. It's going to be young, but it's talented. They'll get it right. They still ain't gotten it right. There's still something wrong on the defense side of that ball.
Would you say that the difference is development on the defensive side of the ball?
I think right now you have to say that.
Okay.
I do. I mean,
Okay.
it's easy to come in and win with a bunch of seniors who were there before you got there.
Right.
Now that they're gone and these are your guys, what are you looking like?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Tram Dickerson says that he thinks Clemson's the only team with a shot at Bama. How do you think about Clemson? We hadn't talked a lot about Clemson, I think, because we automatically assumed Clemson was going to be 2. They're kind of where it's no surprise there. So what do you feel about Clemson?
I got to see it on the field. To kind of come back as far as what he just said, because even last year, there was all this talk about Clemson, and Clemson's the only team that can match up with Bama. They got the number 1 seed, in the playoff last year. Bama was 4, and then when I'm watching the game, and this best front 4 in the country, and I mean, I don't know if you remember, but I don't think Jalen Hurts got sacked that game. If he did, maybe once. But
yeah, I'm glad you bring this point up, and it's crazy because you and I have never talked about this game, but I had the exact same takeaway. Alabama's offensive line controlled Clemson's defensive front
the whole game.
Yeah, and I like Trevor Lawrence. I just don't know if Trevor Lawrence is ready for what he would see from a Nick Saban defense.
Right, and he's not enough to make up the difference between last year and this year, because they arguably, all 4 of those guys came back. So they arguably again have the best front 4 in the country. But the difference in Alabama losing to Clemson was Deshaun Watson, and they don't have that right now.
True.
And I don't know if Trevor Lawrence can become that, in a couple of years or whatnot. But I mean, right now, if they play today, I'm picking Bama, but I just got to see it.
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence has a very I've watched him play several times now. Very strong arm.
Mm-hmm.
That kid, I mean, 6'5", he can make all the throws you want him to make. What I've noticed, and I will say this last game they played, who they played Saturday?
Florida State.
That was the best I've seen him look. Because even in the NC State game and some of the other games, it didn't look like he was doing a very good job of pre-reading. It was almost as if he was going to the guy the play was designed to go to, and it was just working because it was a good play call. Right. The Florida State game, I felt like he was actually making plays and seeing some things.
Okay.
And so that was the best I've seen him look. And he's going to continue to develop. I just don't know if that's enough this year. If Alabama had Jalen Hurts, I believe yes. But I don't know if Trevor Lawrence is ready to outdo Tua, because Clemson's front 4 is good, but their back end of their defense is not good. Right. And so I would still pick Alabama in that matchup. And also, Trevor Lawrence is mobile, but he's not Deshaun Watson mobile.
No, he's not.
Right. He's not that dual threat guy that's gonna really beat you with his legs. He's not a statue. He can run, but that's not his game.
Right.
I like Trevor Lawrence. I think next year, going through spring again next year, full summer, fall. I think he's gonna come. I think Clemson's gonna be nasty coming out next year. But I just don't see it right now when I watch them play.
I agree. And I mean, and especially, I mean, like what you were saying, next year they could really be dangerous. ETN will be back, for his junior year. So yeah, I mean, Dabo doing what he got to do now.
Hey, Hey, I know you ain't seen the chat, man. Ellis Hudson that came in talking about,
Uh,
I know, right? Come in trolling, talking about Lawrence better than Tua.
man, get
Don't
out of
come
here.
trolling our show, man.
Get out of here. Lawrence better than Tua. He posted that in the room a couple of days ago, didn't he?
He posted like 5 times. He's just trolling. He don't believe.
All right, I'm not gonna take him seriously.
No. But anyway, man, I think that's a good show, man. I think we've for this week, man, we've broken down pretty good. I think we know who the contenders are.
Oh, definitely, indeed.
And this is why I keep arguing with everybody I come across. You do not want an 18 playoff. You want to keep it where it is for exactly this reason right here. Everything we're talking about, the chaos, the who's in, who's not in, what needs to happen. You know, I'm going to be watching that Notre Dame Northwestern game. Why? Because it has playoff implications.
Right.
Normally, yeah, Northwestern, Notre Dame. Okay, nah, we're watching that game.
Yeah, this year.
Yeah, this year because you know it's just that excitement, man. So I love the 14 playoff. I don't want it to expand. I don't want automatic bids for conference champions because you just make the out of conference games mean nothing. You allow a team that comes from a weak division that might be like 8-4 that get in their conference championship game to have one upset win and then they're in the playoff. And so I don't like that model. It makes sense. It's clean. It's in a box. It's objective. It's not subjective. But to me, it takes away from what we really love about college football and the regular season and the excitement and what all of these games mean to each other.
Yeah, I would have to agree, and maybe someone and maybe someone disagree. Just okay. Well, I'll just say this: I wouldn't change it. I would leave it at 4. If they had to change it or wanted to change it, I would say go 6. And you give your top 2 teams a bye. Power 5 automatic bid, 1 at large. But you rank them once you know who your 6 are.
I can see that. Only thing I would say was no matter what you go with, no automatic bids.
Okay.
No automatic bids.
Okay.
Because once you make conference champion an automatic bid, the only thing that matters is my conference championship. Who cares if I lose to Florida State out of conference, right? Who cares if Michigan lose to Notre Dame? It's meaningless. It don't mean nothing. It's out of conference. Just get to the conference schedule, And essentially with college basketball, where nobody pays attention to the regular season, just let me know when March Madness gets here and I'll start watching.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I'm glad you said that
because when Duke and Michigan State play in this big game in the Great Alaskan Shootout, don't nobody care. It don't mean nothing. It's a big time matchup.
I'm about to say I want to watch it.
But we college basketball like big college, but in the grand scheme of that game means nothing.
Right.
They're both going to be 1 seed in the tournament. It was nice to say you had some bragging rights to say you won that game.
Right.
It didn't mean anything. You don't want football to be that.
Yeah, I agree. So, yeah, at the end of the day, I think we're good with 4.
Yeah. And the thing is, there's no perfect system. I'm not saying this is perfect.
No.
6 isn't perfect. 8 isn't perfect. We had one guy on the show. He wanted 32 teams.
Oh, my God. No.
Yes. Yeah. But Ashton, I love you, man. You're a little bit radical on that one.
32 teams?
Yeah, 32.
They have 16 at the FCS level?
I think so. He was comparing to high school football.
Nah, you had to cut the regular season way down.
Yeah. 32 teams, way too many. But anyway, man, good show. So what are there any other games that you're looking forward to outside of the 2 big SEC games?
Not really. No, I am looking forward to the Notre Dame matchup because, like you said, it does have playoff implications. I mean, that's going to be. I mean, like you said, that's probably the last test Notre Dame's going to have, and I mean, I'm going to pick them to win the game.
Yeah.
You know, but other than that, man, I mean, me personally, I don't want to sound like an SEC homer, but I just think that those two games are probably the two biggest games this weekend.
I mean, they have the most playoff implications only because they both decide the East and the West divisions per se.
Right.
But yeah, okay. All right, man. Well, good show. Thanks for dropping by.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Hey, let's do it again next week when the rankings come out, man. Let's just keep doing this and discussing the initial reaction to the rankings, man. Let's keep doing it.
Okay, that's cool.
All right, everybody. If you're not subscribed to the channel, subscribe, give us a like. Tune in next Tuesday night. Our regular show with your boy Ellis is on Wednesday nights. And we'll keep this up for a little while, these two shows, and see how it goes. All right, everybody. Have a good one.